we need to be able to access main table in our Java code. And to access it, we have to reference the ID. So let's start. You're going to want to write this piece of code right here. Shoot. Sorry. Right. Okay. Private table layout main table. What this says is this line declares a variable. A variable is a word that references an object. It's not an object by itself, but you can just sort of think of it as the object, because that's sort of the easy way to do it when you're just beginning. So let's create a variable, and we call it main table, and I use the same name as the ID. And it's going to be a private variable. Don't worry too much about what that means, but basically means other classes can't mess with it. It's going to be a private variable, and it's going to be of the type table layout. So it's going to be a table layout object, and it's going to be called main table, and it's a variable. Now, what about this variable? Add the following line to your onCreate method. Okay. And while you're at it, hover over table layout and go ahead and import the code that you need to make this work. So we said take the variable main table and set it equal to this thing over here. Now equals in coding usually means assign this variable to this object. So make this variable reference this thing. Before this, all we did was declare. We said there is a variable called main table, but we didn't say what main table was. Here we say assign the variable main table that we declared earlier to this object. And what is this object? The method here, find view by ID, is inherited from activity, and it says whatever argument you passed me, find the object that has that ID and return or tell us what that object is. And we gave it an ID of main table. So it says find view by ID. What ID? Main table. So it finds the object that has an ID of main table, which was our table, and it gives it back. The thing is, what it gives back is always the view object version of this thing here. And we don't actually want the view version. Remember that a table layout is a table layout, but it's also sort of technically a view object as well, simply because it inherits from the view object. So whatever you put in here, it's just going to give you the view version. And we want the table layout version, because if we don't have that version of main table, we're not going to be able to do all the stuff that has to do with tables, like adding rows and stuff. So we have to cast whatever comes out of here as a table layout. And what that does, or what that means is put this in front of the code right here, and it'll make whatever find view by ID gives us, and it'll give us the table layout version of this. So that's what casting is. So this whole thing says, okay, take the variable main table that we declared up here and assign it to whatever find view by ID returns using this ID, and make sure it is the table layout version of that. Okay? And now we can use main table to change our table whenever we want in our Java code. Let's do the same thing for our diner button. So private image button add diner button. And import image button. Then down here it's pretty much the same thing. Add diner button equal to the image button version that find view by ID gives us from the ID add diner button. Again, you'll notice I'm just using this variables as the same as the ID. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Okay, so nothing to really say there. It's the exact same thing. And yeah, that's it. We do the same thing as main table, but for add dyno button. So let's move on. Now that we can access this code, we need to program what happens when the user clicks on add dyno button. But how do we know when the user clicks on anything? Well, by default, an activity which is again what we inherited from, does not have the power to notice when the user clicks stuff. So in order to notice, the easiest way for us to notice when a user clicks stuff is to inherit the power from another class again. Unfortunately, in Java, we can only extend one class right here. So since we extended activity and activity does not have the power to listen to user clicks, we can't extend another class. On the bright side, what we can do is we can implement an interface called onClickListener. So what is an interface? Let's open Paint and do a quick mini lesson. Or you know what, I'm just going to look at the infographic here. So essentially there are three class-like things in Java. There's a concrete class, which it has attributes and has methods, and all of those methods are implemented or they're defined. Okay? And anything that inherits from a concrete class is also a concrete class. There are also abstract classes which has attributes and methods, but at least one of those methods is unimplemented. And what that means is the abstract class says, okay, I have this method, but I have no code for it. I don't know what it does. If you inherit from me, you can decide what it does, or you can also leave it unimplemented. If you decide what it does, then you become a concrete class. If you don't, and you leave it unimplemented like me, then you are also then if you inherit from me, then you're also an abstract class. And lastly, there's an interface. An interface is not a class, and it does not have any attributes. It only has methods. And none of those methods are implemented. They're all empty. They just tell you what it can do. It doesn't tell you how you do it. If you inherit from it, you have to go and implement all the methods, and you have to say what all of them do. Okay? So here's sort of an example. Let's say we have a person class, and we have a soldier class, and we extend from person to create our basic soldier class. So we have all the things that person has, and we also have some unique soldier stuff like fighting, which is a method. But say we want our soldier class to also be able to use weapons, but we don't want to write the code out ourselves or we don't want to write too much code for all the weapons that we want to use. We want to use code that other people have already written. So we can find classes like sniper and close combat. And maybe these interfaces already have stuff like maybe these interfaces that we implement already have methods like that we can use. So now we get these methods for our class. So we extend all the attributes and methods from the person class, and then we also implement all the methods in all these interfaces, and we can have an unlimited amount of interfaces, unlike classes. So then we can just keep implementing other people's stuff, and that's how you inherit stuff when you've already used up your maximum slot of one class. So use interfaces. So we're going to use where is it? And I have another infographic here on my website if you want to take a look at that. Or you can just pause the video. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to implement the onClickListener. The onClickListener is an interface that has a method that lets us listen to user clicks. And now that we've implemented it, our main activity is also able to listen to user clicks. Now it's underlined, so hover over it and import the onClickListener. There's two versions. Make sure you do the view version right there. Now it'll underline main activity, and like I said, whenever you use an interface, you have to implement all of its methods, since all of its methods are by default unimplemented. And that's just the rule, you have to implement all of them. So it says add unimplemented methods. So Eclipse can do that for you. And it basically only has one. the method that onClickListener has is onClick. So what is onClick? onClick, I'm just going to delete that comment. onClick is a piece of code that, just like how onCreate runs automatically when your app is created, or when the activity is created, onClick runs automatically when something you're listening to is clicked on. Okay? So how do you get main activity to listen? Because by default you don't listen to everything that's on the app. You know, that doesn't make sense. You have to make sure, you have to tell main activity to listen to particular things. So let's go here and add another line. Add diner button. And again, since we declared, and we assigned something for this variable, we can now access it in our code. So add diner button dot set on click listener, I think is the code. Let me check. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so what this code does is, so we're going to do something to add diner button. What are we going to do to it? And note the notation here. It's you put the variable and then a dot and then the method. We're going to set the onClick listener and then as an argument this. And that means make main activity listen to add diner button. And every time add diner button is clicked, main activity will know because it is listening to it. What does this refer to? This refers to whatever class this line of code is in. So this line of code is in main activity. So this refers to main activity. And that's good because main activity implements onClickListener, so it has the power to hear, and now we're telling it to listen to add diner button right here. Okay? And this here refers to the context, and the context is main activity. Okay, great. Now every time the user clicks add diner button, this code will run automatically. Now what do we want to happen when they click add diner button? Okay, so, whoops. So this is onClick and it has an argument called viewV, and what this means is the first word describes what the argument has to, what type the argument has to be. So we want the type to be a view, and then the second word is just a variable that represents the argument in the rest of the code block underneath onClick. So we want a view, or we want to pass a view argument, and we're just going to call it v. Now, whenever this code is run automatically by Android when you click something, Android automatically passes whatever was clicked as the argument. So when they click add diner button, main activity will hear it, and then it will start the onClick method, and it will pass the add diner button, since that was the one that was clicked, as the argument. So v, when add diner button is clicked, is equal to add diner button. Okay. Now, so we have another, so then it runs the code that's in here, and the first line is if v is equal to add diner button, and then stuff. If is a conditional, which means when the computer gets to this, it determines, is what is inside these round brackets true? If it is true, then run the code that is in these curly brackets. If it is not true, skip this entire if block and go to the next line after that, which is nothing. So the computer wants to know if v is equal to the add diner button. In other words, what did the computer pass to us for the view? Was it add diner button or was it another button? If it was another button, don't do anything. But if it was add diner button, do the stuff that's inside the if block, which we haven't written yet. Okay, so this just checks that it's add diner button and not another button that was clicked. Right now we don't need it since add diner button is the only thing that we told main activity to listen to, but later on we'll have to have it. Okay, so what do we want to do if it is add diner button? Let's just we'll just chill out for a sec.